This is Christine Moutier, Chief Medical Officer at AFSP, and I hope for a day when there is no shame or stigma associated with any type of mental health experience, so that we can live our true, authentic selves in the world around us.
Okay. Oh, right. All right. Hello, everybody. We are live at 1:10. Welcome to UC Berkeley's 10th annual Suicide Prevention Walk. presented by You Mean More. My name is Jason Ash, and I'm incredibly honored to be the walk chair for our 10th anniversary of hosting the Out of the Darkness Walk at UC Berkeley. I want to thank you all for being here today to help fight suicide and send a message about the importance of mental health. A lot of us have been in our homes for the past year in various locations. In fact, you can see here on our Padlet page. I will share screen for this. Okay. You can see here on our page where a lot of us have been walking from. A lot of us are in California. Some of us are a bit more north in Washington, and have all the way over here in Hong Kong. Hi, Viv. It's 4 a.m. for you right now, so you're in here in spirit. You're probably asleep, but yeah. We'll push out in chat the Padlet if you want to add to here, and go ahead and put where you are logging in from. We can highlight your comments on stream to help close the geographic gaps between us. Before we start, we have some announcements. First and foremost, our walk is a safe space, so feel welcome to share without fear of judgment. We are walking for a cause that is very personal to many people here, so we ask that everybody be sensitive and respectful in chat. Second, this live stream will be saved to You Mean More's YouTube channel. So all of the resources that we share and timestamps of different segments will be there in the description for you to reference. And if you haven't registered for the walk yet, you can do so at afsp.org/Berkeley. Currently, that link doesn't work, so you can email either You Mean More or Andy, which you'll see in the description, our emails, if you want to register. Now, I want to acknowledge the groups that have been major supporters of this year's walk. Thank you especially to UCPD, who are sponsoring this event and have been sponsoring us for many years and continue to stand with our community and support the prevention of suicide at Berkeley. I also want to thank student-to-student peer counseling. They offer free, confidential one-on-one counseling for all Cal students, and they've been a big supporter for this year's walk. We'll get to hear more from them about how counseling works later on in the stream. Next, I want to thank Bears That Care. They are an active bystander initiative that helps people recognize and intervene in situations that may be violent or harmful to help build a community of care on campus. They're also hiring for next semester, so if you're interested, then please check them out. Last, but certainly not least, I also want to thank our walk committee for helping make this event possible. If we can have them up on screen, they'll be added one by one. Here are their lovely faces. Please send them nice things in chat. You all are amazing. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Bye. They'll be backstage while this is going on. And of course, I want to thank our incredible You Mean More team, as well as the folks at AFSP for all their hard work and dedication in putting this beautiful event together. It's awesome seeing you all here to directly drive support for this cause. You may be aware that suicide is still a pervasive issue in our community, and there is a lack of awareness for its impact. It is the second leading cause of death for young people in the United States. This is especially true for college students, and yet there's a real lack of awareness for it due to a great deal of stigma surrounding the topic. Most people who feel suicidal are dealing with a treatable mental health condition, and at least 3 in 4 people who get mental health treatment benefit from it. So you all being here from around the world shows how we should be treating mental health with the same priority as we do physical health. As you may know, UMeMore is one of the first mental health awareness and suicide prevention organizations at UC Berkeley. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has been supporting us since the very beginning, and we're excited to be at the 10th year anniversary of us partnering for the walk. We have with us here today our biggest source of guidance and wisdom for the Out of the Darkness walk. Please welcome the director of the Bay Area chapter of AFSP, Andy Bruning. Hi, Andy.
Hello, Jason. What a wonderful welcome. I'm blushing a little for the comment about guidance. So I hope that I can provide a little bit of guidance to folks, and I want you all to know that you provide so much guidance to me as well. I wanted to just speak briefly because we have such an incredible group of folks who are joining today. I wanted to just expand on some of Jason's comments. For those of you that have not heard of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, we work nationally in support of a very simple goal, to stop suicide and to support those who are impacted by loss. As Jason mentioned, we celebrate locally the longstanding and really, really phenomenal relationship that we've celebrated with UC Berkeley, and seeing bears that have come up through their time as students and into alumni, and seeing the community that continues to expand. Every day we are able to expand these communities, and I'm so proud to be a part of that. It absolutely tickled me to get to see the Padlet, the map, and just seeing how far flung folks are who are so drawn and so connected to this cause that they're joining us today. And I hope that that person is getting a little sleep at 4 in the morning from Hong Kong, but I'm so excited to know that they'll have the opportunity to watch in the future. I'm joining today from Sunnyvale, so we can continue to see those ripples outward of our impact. I wanted to acknowledge briefly just, how a single act on each of our behalves can have such massive impact, both today, tomorrow, and into the future. That those single conversations can have such meaningful direction and help impact somebody's course of feelings, their emotional landscape. I want everybody that's listening today to understand just how powerful of an advocate and just how powerful of an ally you are in suicide prevention. We all have it within us to be those advocates and to be those allies. I always like to joke, suicide prevention, it doesn't start in a therapist's office. It doesn't start in a counselor's office. It starts with you and I. It starts with the conversations that we have every day when we're walking down the street, when we're interacting with our fellow students, or for me, my fellow colleagues at work or in my professional environment. We all have the tools to carry forward meaningful impact. This group of people that's logged in today, this group of committee members that put this together, we all, when our efforts and our passions and our experiences come together, we create this extraordinarily powerful experience. And for us today, that's the Out of the Darkness campus walk with UC Berkeley, what we're doing right now, which is so fun to get to do. What that is tomorrow is carrying some of that message forward. What it is tomorrow is reaching out to somebody who you're concerned about, or chatting with somebody who one-on-one who you have some concerns about. And it's true, we all feel that through time. It doesn't make you weak to reach out, it makes you strong. We're going to talk a bit today. There's some really incredible speakers, so I won't take too much of your time, but we're going to talk today about the power of reaching out and the power of the resources that are available to us. And the reminder that they are there for you. They're not there in a judgmental space. They're there for you to help. I encourage everybody to reach out to the different tools and resources that Jason and the other You Mean More committee members and some of the other speakers are going to talk about. I do want to just take a moment to also celebrate a longstanding supporter of the event, the University of California Police Department. We welcome them back as a sponsor. Chief Margot Bennett has been a rock solid supporter and understands the fundamental importance of the student population's health, their mental health being such a critical part of their health and well-being overall. So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you to UCPD for that. And then just finally, I want to say, before I bring Jason back up, I want to say how thoroughly impressed I am with the You Mean More committee, both coming together outside of the event to host Talk Saves Lives and It's Real programs where we have the opportunity to talk about depression, have the opportunity to talk about mental health or wellness and what we can all do, right? What we can do to be advocates for ourselves in that space. I'm so impressed by the You Mean More committee for coming together and looking at a year of COVID and saying, it is so important to us that we host our 10th annual, our 10-year anniversary. We're going to come together and make this happen virtually. And look at it, it's so incredible. We've already seen some parts and we get to see so much more soon. So that is where I want to finish, is just to say thank you to the You Mean More committee. Thank you to UCPD for your longstanding support. Thank you to Jason and everybody else. Jason, I'm going to bring you back up to introduce some more folks as well. But it really is an honor to get to work with you, to get to work with the You Mean More folks. And I look forward to continuing to do so. Thank you very much.
As do I, Andy. The support is much appreciated. You've been absolutely amazing to us and to me for all the time that we've, ever since we've met and been in contact with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything that you've done over these past couple of years. I don't think that You Mean More would be in a similar state without the help of AFSP to help us fight the stigma around mental health.
Yeah, and I think I'll let that be the last comment, is that it takes all of us working together. You Mean More is better from AFSP, and maybe my ego will allow me to say my support. AFSP is better for You Mean More support. AFSP is better for our speakers who are going to speak shortly. AFSP is better for every single person logged in together, and You Mean More as well. So it is a reflective environment in which we get to destigmatize suicide prevention. We get to destigmatize access to mental health care. It is not a one-directional project. It is not something that I can just carry forward all the way to the end of the earth. It is all of us working together on it. And that's why I'm so thankful to have the You Mean More committee that is such rock solid, and some of the other speakers that are going to be joining shortly. So I'm gonna take my camera off before I start blushing, Jason.
Of course, you have such a way with words, Andy. You really do. One of the most presentational people I know. Thank you so much. Yeah, whether AFSP has done so much, whether it's provide us with resources, information, or putting on the Talk Saves Lives presentation that we do every year. It's been a massive help in allowing us to not only create a safe space for students to share what they're going through, but also one for sharing knowledge and ideas about mental health. Attitudes towards mental health for our community has changed a lot in the past 10 years. Mental health was rarely talked about in that time, but our first speaker that we have here today has been there from the very beginning, advocating for the mental health of students on campus. Without her amazing efforts, we would not be where we are today. So the same thing can be said for AFSP, but I want to reiterate that today we are a safe space, and that means you are free to excuse yourself at any time. The following speeches will talk about suicide loss and struggle with mental health. So please take care of yourself as needed. With that, uh, I'm excited to introduce one of the very founders of You Mean More, who has sent us in a speech to play live. So without further ado, here is our founder, Sanjala Chitnis.
Hi everyone, my name is Sanjala Chitnis. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am a proud Cal alum from the class of 2014 and the founder of You Mean More. I'm really thrilled and truly honored to be here today and am so inspired by the work that all these different generations of students have done with You Mean More over the past 10 years, which really makes me feel old, but we won't talk about that. When I first started at Berkeley, I was really surprised by the lack of education and access around mental health, especially in this critical time of students beginning this major life transition in a high pressure environment and a very high achieving environment. And despite how common it was for students to struggle with mental health, very few people talked about it. There was a pretty heavy stigma around it, and that really was what sparked this idea for You Mean More initially. I like to say it started as a good vibes campaign, if you will. We'd leave these Post-it notes all over campus, whether it be in the bathroom stalls of that great Dwinell building or at the back of a seat in Wheeler, saying things like, you mean more than your midterm grade, or you mean more than that job interview. Really just trying to drive that point home and emphasize that you are what matters more than anything else. And at that point, I don't think we really had any idea how quickly this mental health movement, if you will, would kind of grow so rapidly. What started as this simple space really for students to have some platform to talk about how they've been impacted, whether it's themselves or a loved one, and really have a group of students that can support and validate and lift one another up. That quickly also became a catalyst for progress in a lot of other aspects, whether it be policy, education, trainings, resources, in addition to that kind of community-built empathy. And so for me, I think one of the most incredible things about that experience was how quickly there was such a wide cross-collaboration across campus, whether it be with the student government or different academic departments or the graduate department, student athletes, Gen X, student veterans. It was really a testament to how wide the impact of mental health really has across so many different kinds of lived experiences. And I'm so proud of, I think, a lot of the collaboration there, because there was not one true owner of this cause. Everyone was really passionate about it, and we didn't need kind of that credit to be that one club who did it. It was really an authentic communal drive towards improving our environment. And so really just so proud that, we could create a space for people to feel seen and for loved ones to feel remembered and for continual awareness and education. And I think for me, one of the best things to come from my experience in You Mean More was really that interpersonal dynamic that developed from collaborating with others who have the same internal mission and this long-term vision of caring about something. And You Mean More really taught me the value of mutual vulnerability and empathy. I think prior, I was always really open for other people to maybe be more open and vulnerable, but maybe not so much myself. And I think building these relationships with all these incredible people who helped me create this organization really showed me how much mutual compassion goes a long way and build such a strong bond. And that has been something that has stayed with me, ever since. And I think since graduating from Berkeley, and I've been working in the tech industry with a pretty core focus on diversity and inclusion work, that is something that I bring to the heart of everything I do, is that human aspect, that validation, that empathy. Are people being seen? Are they being heard? You don't know what you don't know. And I attribute a lot of that through the relationships I built during my time at You Mean More. And oftentimes I'll get asked, how I started getting involved in diversity and equity work in my career in general. And, while I'm a woman of color and a proud child of immigrants, and that has really shaped a huge part of who I am, my passion for inclusion was actually really significantly impacted by my own experience struggling with mental health and the experience of exclusion in doing so. I think struggling with mental health is this type of otherness that is really unique because it's invisible and not spoken of. And you don't know who is also experiencing that same thing. And so it's this really interesting dynamic. And for a large portion of my life and a big part of the beginning of my career, I've carried this mentality of I have to be twice as good just in case. I have to build up this bank balance of safety and rainy day fund just in case that, proverbial bell jar would lower again, and never really feeling like I could take my foot off the pedal because I would be completely off the rails at some point. And that was something that I'd be super worried about. But it wasn't until a few years ago I truly began to see kind of who I am today is not in spite of those experiences, but is truly a direct result of them. I think my otherness is really what gave me my superpower, and the resilience I built through my experiences really taught me to trust myself and believe in myself in a way that I don't know I would have if I didn't have those experiences. And I've always felt really connected to this line in Albert Camus' The Stranger, where it says, in the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me lay this invincible summer. And I've been through my fair share of winters, so to speak, but summer has always come, and it is because of my resilience. And I think I've finally learned and am so grateful to be at a point in my life where I trust that summer will always come because I've proven that to myself. And I'm really grateful for the shift I've just seen in conversations around mental health. Society has come a long way in terms of that from 2011, and mental health is far more commonly spoken of in education or in the workplace, and access and resources do continue to grow. But, the continued investment and movement forward is still so needed. And so for me, I want to leave with kind of this call to action where the next phase of this advocacy work needs to really focus on equitable access. I truly believe being here today is a privilege to be able to openly and passionately engage in the topic of mental health in such a public way. There are so many communities that haven't seen the progress that I have, and many of us here have, and often their starting point was much further than what I experienced initially. And so in continuing to invest in this movement, we really need to proactively and intentionally direct our efforts towards improving awareness and access for those in marginalized communities, to those who face that same twice as good feeling, but it's compounded through this intersection of otherness in multiple avenues that society's infrastructure continues to perpetuate, right? Like that is something that is crucial to recognize and to see and really dedicate our time and effort into doing something about it. So, our work isn't done, but I really do believe we can all get there if we work together. And am, again, just so incredibly grateful for all the hard work that leaders at the beginning and through, and hopefully in the future of You Mean More continue to do, and the community that it's been able to foster and the conversations it's been able to spark. So, thank you for having me here. And again, huge thank you to the current board for all the hard work you put into setting up today. And I hope you have a great one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sangela, for sharing your experience and what you've learned with us. Some of us are lucky to have people around who openly talk about mental health, and Sangela is so right that many don't get that opportunity. It just goes to show why talking about mental health is so important to reach people who are in marginalized communities. I really wish that Sangela could be here with us live, but as with Viv, she's with us in spirit, and still has been a major support for us behind the scenes over these past couple months. So thank you so much, Sangela, for helping us for helping us today. Our next speaker has been through a lot in this past year. She reminds us of how important it is to support each other when dealing with the grief of a loss. She's been a big inspiration for me and for a lot of people who have been involved with the walk in these past 4 months, and what she's done for the mental health of others and the people that she knows is more than one would think possible. She has done so much, and I'm really happy to welcome our amazing committee member and former Berkeley graduate, Sarah Brown. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much. And thank you to Sangela. That was a wonderful speech. I definitely agree with the point about equitable access, and I think you'll hear in my sharing today a bit about that. I just want to acknowledge the committee that has set up this event. Thank you for including me. Thank you for being open-minded. And not only that, but so caring in all the work that you do. So I echo the appreciation, Jason, and that goes out to the whole team. Yeah, thank you. This year has been an unimaginable year. So many of us have suffered from the weight of grief. For me too, this year has been one of tragedy and change. My sister took her life barely a year ago on February 23rd, 2020. It was a stressful work week for me, and I had missed something that was unusual for her, a text from me that wasn't answered promptly by her. Overloaded by my own responsibilities, I chose to put off looking into the missed text until later. When you lose someone to suicide, you very quickly become their personal historian, tracking all of your interactions, looking at all their social media posts, treasuring memories, while also looking to answer a riddle that is a mirage. Why? What did I miss? When looking over our text history, I saw evidence of a budding adult friendship and sisterhood. We hadn't always been best friends, and in fact, we had often argued as children and disagreed on our life approaches. I think anybody who has a sibling knows what I'm talking about. However, when she moved to the Bay Area a few years ago, it seemed like we were making up for lost time. I would be at her place or she at mine nearly every weekend. I attended a party for her dog, whom she adored. I went on countless walks with her in this beautiful Bay Area. We made stupid jokes and laughed till we cried. We commiserated over societal and ills and family issues. We ate dozens of $1 Taco Bell bean and cheese burritos. And I attempted to understand the intricacies of college level philosophy, which is what she was studying as an undergraduate at UC Berkeley. And through everything that we did together, we laughed through all of it. She took pictures for my graduation for a master's in social work at UC Berkeley. And so that was, I graduated and she was accepted into the philosophy program. And of course, extremely proud of her, cheered her on when she was accepted as a philosophy major because she was a transfer student and she had made an incredible amount of effort to be there at UC Berkeley. And she was just so thrilled and excited to be there. We were each other's cheerleaders, defenders, and best friends. And anyone who knows my sister, and I know there's a lot of you out there, she was a vibrant soul. She always seemed to be laughing, joking, and building friendships. She was so beautiful, inside and out, and she had a passion for deep thinking and an amazing artistic talent and love for humanity, which allowed her to really put people's soul on paper. And despite the many lives she had touched, her incredible talent, her deep intellect, and despite the fact that there are so many people that continue to love her deeply and have always loved her deeply, she decided to leave. It made me wonder, what would it have taken to make one more connection in our already strong chain of support? Have you ever had the impulse to call someone to reconnect after many weeks? I know we've all had that experience where we're thinking about somebody and then they end up texting or calling us and telling us that they were thinking about us. I really believe that we have an innate connection as human beings. But unfortunately, our social media can pull us away, our adult responsibilities, or maybe guilt gets in the way about not reconnecting in a long time. Maybe we're the ones who are suffering and we're the ones that could use a hand, but we don't want anyone to hear the messiness of our internal experience. I know I've certainly felt that, not wanting to be a burden on others. But I encourage you, and I'm encouraging myself, to close the gap. Make the call, send the text, take the ride over. If this year has taught me anything, it's been the power and strength of community. I want to personally thank my friends who have taken the time to send texts of support, who have called or brought food, who have shared their memories with my sister so openly and beautifully, who have sent unexpected gifts in the mail and spent time listening to me during painful moments. The magic of community and human connection was the beauty of my sister's life. And I want to share with you a bit of her beauty. She left this book of advice for her future daughter that has become a treasured companion for me, preserving her voice and her life approach. Even though she's my little sister, I aspire to be like her, a person who treasures and nourishes friendship in a world that can be incredibly challenging. So this is her book, and I'm just going to share a few things with the world, I guess. Call your mom once a week. Promise it won't be boring. Don't let anyone talk you into something you are unsure of. Always keep receipts for at least a few days. You won't regret it. Hand wash knitted clothes. You won't regret it. Learn how to be an active listener. Listen to people, i.e., don't just butt in with your 2 cents. Ask that question you feel welling up inside of you. And this is a bit of a premonition. She said, buy toilet paper in bulk. Won't regret, promise. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for others. Don't leave tissues in your pockets. Oh, this is a good one of my favorites. If you're going to use big words, make sure you know what they mean. That's for the Berkeley students. If you think you are going to lose your temper, don't. If there is a characteristic you seek in this world and cannot find, learn it. Say thank you and mean it. Return a favor. Help the elderly. Don't be afraid to say no. Practice makes perfect. If you don't floss, your teeth might fall out. Don't take 5 years to decide which kind of pizza to order, and hold on to your close friends. You won't regret it. So that's just a little bit of my sister. Even though I can't get my sister back, not in this lifetime, I want to honor her memory and the memories of those loved ones we have lost. I aspire to be like her, someone to lean on who can offer a couch, a brown bag lunch, and especially a listening ear. I also want to be someone who, as a member of the mental health professional community, advocates for needed mental health resources, especially for those who may not have access, and also somebody who partakes in mental health resources. This year, I have dealt with the physical and mental toll of grief and the traumatic stress and anxiety that comes with experiencing the death of a loved one by suicide. I am so eternally grateful for my friends, many of whom are mental health professionals themselves, and the therapists I've called on to help me through this challenging year. I hope and I know we can close the gap, take the step, be courageous, and show up for ourselves and one another. In this year of unprecedented separateness and loss, I've also known incredible kindness. We can close the gap. We can make all the tiny connections that lead to trust and emotional intimacy. We can access and advocate for increased mental health services in our various communities. We can be a community, as we have been and continue to be. As we move bit by bit out of our pandemic bunkers, I hope we are just a little bit kinder, a little bit braver, a little bit more connected, and a little bit more caring for ourselves and others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. I won't cry, guys. It isn't easy for you to speak up about this, but doing that allows us to connect. Those passages from Ollie are so powerful to hold on to. And you're right, there's power in talking to others. It's cathartic and reminds us that we're not alone. The 80 people in your Facebook group for We Love Ollie have done an amazing job of being together to support each other in this time. I hope other people are as inspired to reach out to others as you have done. You're amazing, everything you do, and I'm really glad that you're here. Okay. Our last speaker for this afternoon is Dr. Ashley Malikan, an assistant professor of psychology at UC San Francisco and a clinical psychologist. She's a practitioner of dialectical behavioral therapy and uses it to treat teens and young adults. We're honored to welcome to our virtual stage, Ashley Malikan. Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So happy that you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And I'll apologize in advance. I've got two littles that may run into the camera at any point, but I've tried to corral them somewhere else.
Oh, it's not a worry. I think it'd be fun for everybody to see anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, and thank you all who are in attendance for this Out of Dark virtual suicide prevention walk. I didn't realize this was the 10th annual, and it's such a remarkable contribution from all of these students to the UC Berkeley community and the Bay Area community at large. Despite the unusual circumstances this year, which is really an understatement, we're so glad to have you all here demonstrating your commitment to both raising awareness and ending stigma about mental health and suicide. I want to thank the You Mean More organization for having me, and especially all the other speakers for their incredibly moving and thoughtful remarks this afternoon. I'm finding that some of what I am about to say may seem redundant, and I really think it bears repeating that some of the messages that we're all sharing with you today. So to just reintroduce myself, my name is Dr. Ashley Malikan, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and an assistant professor at UCSF. And I've been asked to join you today because of my expertise in providing evidence-based behavioral therapies, and more specifically, a treatment known as dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT for short, to those struggling with chronic suicidality and self-harm behaviors. In my practice, I primarily work treating these behaviors in teens and young adults. And unfortunately, it seems like our clinic is never without a wait list. The CDC recently published a study documenting that the rate of suicide among those aged 10 to 24 increased nearly 60% between 2007 and 2018. And that certainly reflects my clinical experience. Our wait list, even prior to COVID, just always seems to be growing and growing. And the data are still being collected and analyzed, but it seems clear to all of us in the field, and I'm sure to everybody in the audience today, that COVID has exacerbated the suffering of people across the lifespan. So not just the teens and young adults who I work with, but adults and even really young children, likely contributing to increased suicidal ideation and risk. With the increased stress and isolation we've all been experiencing this year, this topic is more important than ever to be discussed and to be addressing. I've been working with suicidal patients essentially since I started my training as a psychologist around 10 years ago. And over the course of my training and work, I've learned that patients often see suicide as the only way to cope with their intense emotions and suffering. It's not something they generally stumble upon out of nowhere, but rather after feeling like they've exhausted all other possible options for feeling better. And sometimes, unfortunately, their efforts to feel better have included engagement with the mental health system, either through therapy or medication. And this can be really especially challenging for patients who feel as though they've tried to do the quote unquote right thing, only to find that they don't experience the sustained relief that they're looking for. However, those of us who aren't in their shoes can see the stark disconnect between the problem they're experiencing and suicide. Namely, suicide is permanent, meaning its consequences are forever. However, no emotion for anyone has ever lasted forever. It can certainly feel that way if we're hit again and again by powerful and painful emotions, and yet no one emotion has ever lasted forever. So they are applying something that is permanent to something that is transient. And that is a disconnect that I work to help my patients see. So then to expand my work is also to help my patients find other ways to cope and other ways to experience relief from their suffering. This includes directly thinking about coping effectively with emotions, learning how to ride the waves of the ups and downs, or sometimes what seems like the downs and downs of their lives, and when possible, to find solutions to the problems that are contributing to their emotions. Doing this work for many years, what I wanted to share with you today is that your presence here is really a reflection of my experience. And what I mean to say there is that there is hope. My work is hopeful work, which may seem counterintuitive given the nature of what I do, and yet I really truly believe that. Our collective efforts to bring awareness to these issues, which have for so long been discussed only in hushed tones or behind veils of secrecy and shame, are not misguided. Bringing help to those in need instead of ignoring or maligning them is not, as it was once believed to be, wasted effort. People who struggle with these issues can and do get better. Suicidal thoughts and feelings are treatable. There are a few key things I think that bolster that hopefulness for me and that I go back to time and time again when even I get lost in the weeds with all of this. And the first is, again, your presence at today's event and other organizations like this around the world. We cannot solve a problem either at the individual or the societal level if we don't name it. In my work, I'm often reminded of a quote by Mr. Rogers, who Mr. Rogers and Daniel Tiger have become sort of a key part of my life now that I'm a parent. And Mr. Rogers said, anything that's human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. The people we trust with that important talk can help us know that we are not alone. So essentially what he's saying here is building awareness about these issues through naming them, through making them mentionable, is fundamental to changing them. And I sincerely hope you will carry that idea forward in your own lives and when interacting with those you care about. Actually, not just when interacting with those you care about, but when interacting with anyone. Humans did not evolve to be islands. We are communal, we are tribal creatures, and our emotions are a tool that evolution has selected for again and again to help us communicate with each other. Emotions communicate between humans faster than words can, often. So by talking about our emotional lives and by inviting others to do the same, we take that first, most crucial step towards advancing the work to destigmatize mental health and suicide. Additionally, these conversations, this talk about emotions, creates opportunities to solve the problems that contribute to our pain, and opportunities to validate emotions in ourselves and others, both of which can hopefully lead towards feeling better. As I was working on these remarks, I kept thinking about that slogan that you see on buses or when we used to ride buses or when we used to travel on airplanes, about unaccompanied luggage. If you see something, say something. We all want to be seen. And by saying something, when we see emotions in one another, we can hopefully make them more manageable. When we mention them, they enter into the space between two people. And then together we can look at them and we can start to manage them. Another core thing that really helps maintain my hopefulness in this work about addressing the public health crisis around suicide is that I know there are treatments that work. The body of research on dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, which, as I mentioned, is the primary treatment I use with my chronically suicidal patients, demonstrates this clearly. There's a really, really robust literature on DBT. And additionally, perhaps more importantly for me in my day-to-day life, is that I've seen evidence-based treatment work to save the lives of my patients. And this isn't just by helping them survive and stay miserable, but really it's about helping them build a life that they want to stay alive for. By talking openly and candidly about suicide and mental health, we can also start the conversations about how to address them in an evidence-based way. Not all treatments are created equal, and our mental health system, I think, puts a great deal of responsibility on those suffering to navigate what is largely an unnavigable system. Right now, many who struggle feel like they are alone in the middle of a desert with no roadmap to find water. And yet, as we build public awareness about mental health and suicide, we can simultaneously build public awareness about effective treatments, and that can help the path to water become more navigable. Additionally, increased awareness of both the problem of suicide and the treatments that work will hopefully inspire those powers that be, those who control the purse strings, to make these resources more readily available to those in need. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who's a world-renowned mindfulness researcher and practitioner you may have heard of, said, "As long as you are breathing, there is more right with you than wrong with you, no matter how ill or hopeless you may feel." And this really resonates with me, both personally and professionally, and helps remind me that for all my patients, there is a way forward, even if we haven't found it yet. Humans are incredibly resilient. And since becoming a psychologist and doing this work, I've come to believe that our default setting is survival no matter what. And your presence here today suggests that you believe that as well, even if you've never articulated it quite that way or thought about it in those terms. I hope some of what I've said is useful. And above all else, what I really hope is that you'll tell at least one person that you attended today's event. That small effort, that act of bringing more awareness to these issues and identifying yourself explicitly as a safe space for people is the beginning of a ripple effect towards change. Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate your time and attention.
That was awesome, Ashley. Thank you so much for sharing your psychology experience and amazing insights. Your quotes were really, really, really good.
I'm glad. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Of course. Like, you're right that our emotions are so natural to us, and yet the feeling of being alone can overwhelm our need to take care of those emotions. And I think that your words encourage us to foresee a day where people feel comfortable to actively seek therapy when it can really improve their mental state. So that's all the speakers for today. To everybody, Sangela, Andy, Sarah, Ashley, You're incredible and super inspirational people doing fantastic things for the greater good. And for everyone else that's here, thank you so much for tuning in to hear those experiences shared. We'd like to take a moment to honor the lives lost to suicide for those attending the walk. I'm going to share a presentation for our remembrance wall that we have done this year. So, okay. That may have been a bit rough, but yeah, that's what we had to manage. Thank you to Brahim and Sarah for submitting to their remembrance wall to help us remember those lost to suicide. As our main event comes to a close, I'd like to recognize the people who have been working behind the scenes this whole time. Thank you to Albert, Pumi, Sarah, Cassie, and Andy. You have helped make our 10th walk special, and you've all earned a pat on the back for your hard work. I'd also like to recognize the outcomes for today on our AFSP page, which, thank you, which I will put on screen. So as of right now, we have raised $6,477 for AFSP, which is absolutely amazing. This is a major increase in what we were expecting, and this number is just absolutely incredible to see. And this wouldn't be possible without the efforts of these amazing individuals and teams who have registered to help raise funds. For the top teams, we'd like to recognize We Love Ollie, the You Mean More OG Squad, SSPC Berkeley, You Mean More 2021, and Bears That Care. And for our top fundraisers, of course, is Sarah Brown, Sangela Chitness, Karina Sampson, me. I should go to the next one, and Sarah Harrington. And we can get a view of everybody who has been a part of our event and fundraising. Okay. We also can't forget the $1,000 sponsor contribution by Berkeley UCPD, whose logo appears at the bottom of our walk page. We're very thankful for them to contribute to our event as well. Remember, there's still time to register and fundraise even after the event is over. The registration button on the page has been taken down, but you should see in chat there's our You Mean More email and Andy's email. So if you're interested in registering, then you can email there and we can set something up. We're almost at the light of the end of the tunnel with the pandemic. A lot of us have had trouble going on day to day, and we hope that you can find safety and health as we transition out of this quarantine. To help break the isolation, we will start to transition our event into the social on Gather, which you should see a link to that in chat and in the description if you're watching on YouTube. If you're able to join from your computer for that, then we love to see you there. Otherwise, for those who maybe aren't on their computers or aren't in the mood for socializing right now, we have recorded interviews with counselors at Student to Student Peer Counseling and the Tang Center to help give students an idea of how they can make a counseling appointment and how they can use counseling for their mental health. This section will also be on our YouTube channel after in the recording of this stream. So if you attend the social, then you won't have to miss it because it'll be available later. So thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at social or in chat if you stay here on the stream. Thank you for walking out of the darkness with us. Can we pull up everybody on? Everybody's here. Andy, hey.
Incredible job. Incredible job, everyone. Such powerful stories. I'm so awestruck at getting the opportunity to hear those. It's really outstanding.
Yeah. You all are awesome, and I couldn't have done like anything without you guys for being here. You've all been backstage doing stuff behind the scenes, and you really deserve recognition for everything that you've done to help out. So thank you all. So a portion of us will be heading to the Gather. Andy and Cassie will be sticking around to help introduce and play the videos that we have. So you'll be hearing from Cassie for the rest of the stream. So for me, thank you all for coming. I will see you at the Gather if you are going. I will be hopping off, so I'll see you all there. And for those who aren't, I'm glad that you've been here, and I hope that you enjoy the videos that we have prepared. And introducing Cassie.
Hi, I'm Cassie. I'm on the walk committee, and so our first interview is going to be with Student to Student Peer Counseling, just about who they are, how to make an appointment, because I really feel that a lot of people, a big barrier to getting treatment can be just not knowing what it's like. And so we brought in two people, one from Student to Student Peer Counseling and one from the Tang Center here at Berkeley, our counseling center, just to talk about answer some frequently asked questions, just about using their services and just about using mental health services in general. Okay,
here we go.
Hi, I'm here with Ashley from SSPC, which is Student to Student Peer Counseling. And so I'm just going to ask her a few questions so you can get to know the organization a bit. Can you just tell me a little bit about what SSPC is?
Yeah, for sure. So SSPC, Student to Student Peer Counseling, is a campus mental health service run by peers for peers. So we've actually been around since the 1960s at Cal. So we have a pretty long history of helping the mental health community here. And essentially we train our student counselors over the course of a semester to be mental health counselors for the following semester. So we hold office hours, and any undergraduate can come in, talk about whatever's on their mind. And what we do is provide active listening and positive regard. So we really emphasize validation and empathy, and we will not give any advice because we believe in client empowerment in that the client has their own sense of direction and what would be best for them. So definitely a combination of active listening and empathy.
Cool, thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about how to make an appointment?
For sure. So our website is sspc.berkeley.edu. If you go to an appointment tab, you can make an appointment that fits your schedule. We have them 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. You'll be prompted and be given a Zoom link as well. And then a counselor who's available during that time will see you. And yeah, those are totally flexible and can fit whatever your schedule needs might be.
Cool. I have two more kind of more specific questions. So is it confidential? And then also, so yeah, it's like, is it confidential? Will you report stuff to people? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's totally confidential, both for the counselors and for the student. The exception to that is if there is an imminent danger of the student harming themselves or someone else. In that case, we would need to take some sort of protocol with a combination of CAPS and our own protocol. But other than that, everything's totally confidential. I know it's sometimes tricky with Zoom and online efforts, but we do everything we can to make sure that what's said in the session remains in that session.
Great. And just one more question. How is it different talking, like how is it different from your perspective, but also just like what do students say about how it's different talking to a peer versus a trained, like a mental health professional?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the main reasons why people tend to prefer us. In some cases, I think we do a good job of making it seem like a casual conversation instead of a clinical kind of setting, where you feel like you need to have certain steps or certain pathways of getting treatment or diagnosis or whatever the case may be. We obviously stay away from that. It's really focused on the client or the student and what they would like to go into, and really whatever level of depth they want to cover, we're open. So definitely student driven instead of kind of like agenda focused as some mental health services can be.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here, Ashley. And I think, wait. Thank you so much. And thank you to Ashley for helping us record that. Our next interview is with Dr. Aaron Cohen from the Counseling Center here at Berkeley. It's a little bit longer. I talked to him both about using CAPS, our counseling center, and just some questions about starting therapy in general. And he'll go into both talking to a therapist and on a more weekly basis versus talking to their after hours crisis line. Hi, I'm here with Dr. Aaron Cohen from Counseling and Psychological Services at the Tang Center. And we're just going to have a little conversation where I ask him some questions about CAPS and how you can use their services. So I wanted to start just, how do you make an appointment? What's the appointment process like?
Well, Cassie, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Aaron Cohen. I'm one of the psychologists at Counseling and Psych Services, and I use he, him pronouns. I guess first off, I do want to kind of acknowledge that we're having this conversation in April of 2021 when we are on remote learning. And so what we talk about today in terms of some of our services may be different when everyone's kind of back on campus. So just kind of acknowledging that. With that, there can be some nuance to how to make an appointment. And so I always want people to have the most up-to-date information, which would be on our website, uhs.berkeley.edu, looking for counseling and psych services. And so I kind of always let people know that's always the best place to get the most up-to-date. But if I want to keep it really simple, there are just two numbers you all need to know. And whether you're just wanting general counseling or whether you're in crisis, during the business hours, Monday through Friday, calling the counseling center, 510-642-9494. Or if it's after hours, this number is actually a 24/7 number. It would be 855-817-5667. That's the simplest way to set up an appointment. And know that when you call, there are going to be a few questions that helps kind of direct what kind of appointment and who you would get to see. But that's the simplest way to kind of talk about it. Just call and let the person on the other end, help figure out, first off, who's going to be the best person, what kind of appointment it's going to be, and then you'll kind of go from there. I also really want to stress that that we offer a lot of services at the Counseling Center beyond just individual counseling. And so again, on the website, students can kind of look at that, but we have a really great groups program, a lot of workshops throughout the semester. We have an online program called Therapy Assist Online, which is really a wonderful opportunity for students to do some work kind of on their own. And that's available to all Cal students. And so really want students to know that we're more than just, we're about your health and wellness. It's not just about individual counseling. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And then you talked about the crisis number, and I know a lot of people just will worry, like, what if this doesn't count? Like, what really counts as a crisis, like from the Tang Center's perspective?
Yeah, that's always a great question. And the one thing that worries me is when students get asked that question and they go, well, I don't think it's a crisis, but it is. And then they don't get to talk to someone. So this is my simple definition, and then I'll expand on it. My simple definition is that if you as a student feel like you want to talk to someone today, it's a crisis and you can talk to someone today. That's kind of the simplest definition. We really allow you all to say, I'd like to talk to someone. I hope that makes sense. And so I really don't want students to ever feel like, they're being diverted or something. So if you want to talk to someone, when you call the line, say, I really want to talk to a counselor. And again, remember, the first person you talk to may not be a counselor. So tell them you want to talk to a counselor. With that, there are a couple things that I always think of that are I think are really important. So if you're having any thoughts of harming yourself, if a student's having any thoughts of harming themselves or are thinking about not wanting to live, thinking about harming other people, experienced a really significant loss recently, or been the victim of a crime, or been the victim of assault, those are some things that to me and to us really rise. But again, I'm going to go back to the thing I started with, which is if a student wants to be seen today or talk to a counselor today, we do everything we can to get that to happen.
That's great to know. Thank you. And so kind of shifting back more to the just general therapy appointment, do you have any tips for how to be prepared, maybe even if whether it's your first therapy appointment ever or your first appointment with CAPS?
Sure. Well, let me just jump back to even how to prepare for a crisis appointment.
Yeah.
That if you call and you're saying, I really need to be seen, there's something going on that I need to talk about. I think there are a couple of things. One, do understand that I always joke the B in Berkeley's for bureaucracy. There's always a little bit of bureaucracy. So whoever answers the phone is going to want to know your name, want to know your student ID, in part because our services are for registered students. And so we have to, that's kind of part of the basics. Also with remote learning, we are asking students where they're currently at. And so that is it's just part of what we have to do. And it's not something we're choosing to do to make things difficult. It's part of the ethics and the legal issues that we have to do to provide telemental health. So with that, if you're calling in crisis, I think there's not much you need to prepare for. What you can expect is that the counselor is going to really want to focus in on what the crisis is today and how to provide some relief today. They're probably going to ask some questions about safety because that's very important. And then the hope is that at that end of that appointment, even if things don't feel perfect, that you have a plan of what the next step is. Now, if it's a general counseling appointment, you're not in crisis, you're wanting career counseling, or you're wanting to talk in general about relationships or things going on politically on campus, things like that. Know that, again, you're probably going to have to fill out a little paperwork. And again, we're not doing that to create a barrier. What we're trying to do is get some information. So in that regard, the counselor may have some information about what you're thinking about before you even get to the appointment, which I think can be really helpful for the counselor. What you'll do in that first appointment is get to know the counselor a little bit. Counseling is one where we talk about the word goodness of fit, where connection is really important. And beyond that, counseling is strange. Especially if it's the first time you've ever gone, it can be really weird and awkward. And beyond that, the goal of counseling, at least I know for me initially, is to try to create some level of comfort. And then just talk about what kind of start to think about goals and what you're wanting out of counseling. And I know for some students, they're not 100% sure. And so sometimes the counseling is just setting some of those basic goals. But I think those are some of the things that you'll think about, with the counselor.
Great, that's super helpful. So I think this next question kind of goes off what you were saying, but I know some people will say, like, I've definitely experienced this with my friends, saying like, oh, I don't think therapy is for me. I talked to someone and I didn't like them. It wasn't a good experience. Do you have any tips for, what to do in that situation, whether it's at Tang or just in general?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And I think the first thing I would say is, if it isn't at Tang, if you've had a bad experience in counseling before, and it wasn't at Tang, maybe it was when you were in high school, or at a community college, or some other experience, I'd like to say that try CAPS out, try us out, because one of the things that our counselors are well trained and very interested in working specifically with undergraduate and graduate students. And so we kind of understand some of the nuance of the university, as well as the mental health issues and wellness issues of undergraduate and graduate students. We have a large staff, a wide range of counselors with a wide range of skills, expertise, interests, and identities. And so we feel like we can really, we try to look like our student body, and we really feel like we have something to offer in that regard. Now, having said that, if you've been to the counseling center and it just didn't feel right, then I think the quick answer is, it is absolutely okay for you to ask for a different counselor. And the simplest way to do that is just to call the counseling center and say, I saw Aaron and I just don't think it was a good fit. Is there a way that I can see another counselor? That's the simplest thing to do. On another level, if it ever feels comfortable to, for example, I'll use me. If you've seen me and it didn't feel like a good fit, then being able to call me and say, you know what, Aaron, I know this is hard, but to call me and say, Aaron, it wasn't a good fit. I'm looking for something different. And then one of the things that we can do is talk about what would be different, so that when we go to try to connect you to another counselor, we have a better sense of who would be a good fit. And I know that can be hard. So again, the simplest is, if you didn't connect with your counselor, please don't give up. Call and say, I just don't think it was the right fit. Can I please try to see someone different? And we work as hard. Sometimes it can take some time, but we work really hard because we know that connection, that fit, is really integral to counseling.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely good to know. And I feel like a lot of people might not have heard that. So hopefully that can help someone. And then also, just to add on to that, can you talk a little bit about referring out and how that works? Yeah,
so I know that this can get a little confusing for some, okay. But we are we do short-term counseling. So we're not generally seeing students weekly. We're not always able, now if someone's in crisis, we will, but for general kind of counseling, we're seeing students, every 2 to 3 weeks, and we are a short-term kind of model. We're not trying to be too focused on the number. We're more focused on the need of the student. And so, but again, so we tend to be better trained and work more in kind of a short-term model if a student is needing more ongoing work. And again, sometimes this is subjective, but I've had students say to me, I really want to be seen weekly, and I don't want to ever feel like there's a limit to it. That's when we make these referrals out into the community. And again, what that can do is, it doesn't mean, what I'll say to students is, I don't necessarily think you need to be in therapy the rest of your life, but I think even for this semester, 16 weeks, I think if you were in counseling once a week, you get more out of it. And I know that I've worked with students where I've seen them 8 times over the course of an academic year. And then the next year I've helped connect them to an ongoing counseling. And it is amazing. Within 2 months, they've seen that counselor as much as they saw me in an entire academic year. And that can make a difference. So I think it can be really helpful. Right now, if folks are needing referrals, they can do that. If they go to our website, there's a section on off-campus referrals. Some students don't want anything to do with asking us about that process. So whether you're on CHIP or you're on a different insurance, you can go to that website, look up the information, and find a referral in the community. A lot of the work that we do is helping people find connections in the community. And again, that can be different now that we're in telemental health than when everyone's on campus. So one thing I will point out is that our counselors, whether it's short-term or anything, are working with students right now who are physically in California. So whether you're in the residence halls, whether you're living in Berkeley, or whether you're living down in San Diego, we can work with you. For students who are living outside of California or internationally, the counseling center counselors aren't able to see you because our licenses only cover us in California. But there is a system in place to get you counseling. So again, I don't want folks who are outside of California to feel like they don't have any support. And we can, again, help with that as well. I think one of our counselors has some drop-in times to help students who are specifically outside of California. So I don't know if that was too much or too little information, but.
Well, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then if someone has let's say like someone has a friend who they're worried about, is that something they could but maybe their friend isn't, comfortable coming in. Is there a way to talk to a counselor just like, I have this friend in this situation, I'm not really sure what to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I would, whether it's the 510-642-9494 or the 855-817-5667, just call. And that's what I would have you say, I'm not needing counseling myself, but I'm worried about a friend. I'm wondering if I could talk to someone about how worried I should be and what I can provide my friend, or even how to talk my friend into coming to counseling. And so that doesn't become part of your counseling experience. You're really calling the key word there is you're basically saying, I want a consultation. And we do this with our faculty and staff and with our resident advisors, that we offer them as counselors time to say, hey, I'm worried about someone. This is what I'm seeing, and this is and I'm just trying to figure out what to do with that. And know that information can be anonymous, that if you're calling, you don't have to tell us who your friend is. It can be helpful at times, but what I focus on more is what's the issue going on and how can we support the person than the name. Again, it may be at a time where you say, yeah, this is the person, and I want them to know that I called you, so yeah. But in that regard, you can call and say, I just like to talk about a friend of mine. I don't want to, they are a Cal student, I don't want to give their name. That's okay.
That's good to know. I know I only recently figured out from just trying it that you can also call a hotline about someone else. And I think that's super helpful, and often people don't know that. So it's good to know it's the same with Tang.
Absolutely.
Do you mind if I ask you one off-script question?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I know that with telehealth, something that a lot of people have been struggling with is privacy, especially if you have a roommate. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, that's been one we all as counselors have been struggling with. And interestingly enough, I know that our counselors have been struggling with the same thing doing the work.
Yeah.
So we have some of our counselors that are working out of their bathrooms, who have multiple, kids at home, who are living in multi-family households, multi-generational households, trying to do the work. And so I actually, again, it's a matter of as best you can trying to find that small window of time and space. Some folks are okay doing it by phone so they can get out of the house and go take a walk. Other folks are really working to work schedules when they know family might be out or doing things like that. But in reality, I kind of want to just acknowledge that even as counselors, we're having some of these struggles. And I don't know that I have a perfect answer for that in that regard, but we will work with you to try to, I mean, that might be some of the thing we try to figure out with you, you know, as we move forward.
Yeah, it's good to know. And the walk's a good idea. I know some people who've done that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for talking with me. I hope this gives you a little bit of an idea of what it's like to go to CAPS. And if you have other questions, we'll put these hotlines, the phone number and the hotline up below. Thank you.
What a set of resources and tools that you were able to connect students with. That is so outstanding to know that Berkeley has a diversity, Berkeley students have a diversity of options available to them. We'll keep those numbers on the ticker on the bottom, of course. So if you want to jot those down, if you're still with us, high five to you. Cassie, I am amazed at you and You Mean More's ability to bring this incredible community together. So thank you. Do you have any last words that you'd like to share to the community at large?
Well, just thank you so much for your help. Thank you to everyone who came. We did get one question in the comments that I thought it might be worth mentioning after those interviews, is that if you're looking for accommodations in class due to any sort of mental health struggle, you can reach out to the Disabled Students Program, which is dsp.berkeley.edu. And that's another great resource. I didn't get a chance to interview them, but that's another great resource that you can use for mental health if you want to get accommodations for class. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Andy. This has been great.
Wonderful. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, Cassie. I am going to go take a walk. Since we weren't able to walk together as a group, I'm going to go take a walk with my partner and keep in mind not only Dave, who I walk for, but also Ollie, also everybody who is a part of today's community. I will keep everyone in my thoughts today as we take that memorial walk, as much as it is a walk of celebrating those folks' life. So Cassie, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, everybody, for being such a phenomenal part of our community.
Thank you.